Okay, so I'm going to talk about these Lego-like toolbox systems from Dewalt and Ridgid. A few months ago, you may have seen a video that I did where I compare these in the Home Depot store, because these are sold side by side at Home Depot, and they are actually, from what some people have told me, they're made by the same companies in Israel. So one set's made on a Dewalt contract, the other set's made on a Ridgid contract. Now, Dewalt's company also does other boxes that are made in China. Some of them are made in the US. They do different ones with different sources. But this whole Lego toolbox system is apparently something coming from the old world, and has been popular, I guess, in the UK for a while. And this is, I'm noticing a lot of videos on a Dewalt system, because a lot of the New Yorker handyman, contractor, builder type dudes are going with that. Because there's a neat little hand truck cart that goes with these things, very heavy duty, kind of expensive, about $170. But if you get around on a subway or through public transit, you can kind of sort of get away with that, because it's like having luggage on a cart. And they may or may not allow toolboxes, but these things are kind of like luggage. And I was originally looking at these as an alternative to some Pelican hard dig cases, which come in at about this size, that I was going to use for some medical gear. And it turned out that for the medical stuff, there's no way around it. I got to get the Pelican hard dig thing. These are good for other stuff, and I'm using them for tools. And what I found is that the Ridgid contract stuff, it's a little bit different design from the Dewalt contract stuff. It's much less expensive, a little bit less heavy duty in some respects, and we're going to show how that works right now. They're made out of a heavy duty plastic, and it's not that hollow, what they call blow molding type stuff, which was used on some of the older Ryobi toolbox system, which are halfway decent. I mean, a blow molded box is decent, and a lot of times they were what would come new with a lot of tools in the 1990s. DeWalt, for whatever reason, doesn't use blow molded stuff all that much. They use solid molded stuff. And this box came to me as part of a promotional deal this last holiday season, when this kit with the drill, the driver, a couple of the smaller batteries and all that was pretty good. But it came with an insert that only held those items. When I remove the insert, it's a full-on toolbox, which is a good thing. And so I work with that, and it's kind of good. A nice heavy-duty handles. It's got the little blowout valve, kind of like what you might see on Pelican stuff. You can take standard full-size padlocks. I like the idea of having top handles on these things, compared to this not having a top handle, but it has these things. On these, the locking system is only a locking system, and it's plastic. So I start having some doubts about how much weight it can handle. Let's say if I have a lot of stuff in the bottom box and I go to lift it up, would one of these things fail? If you're going to use all three boxes connected together a lot, I suggest getting the cart. They do have an economy cart that's a little four-wheel dolly type thing that will connect just to the bottom. And that was part of their T-Stack system, but they make a version, and the T-Stack system's like a little bit less expensive than the Toughsystem boxes. But they make a version of that little four-wheel cart that would work with the Toughsystem stuff. But it won't work. It's not the hand truck, okay? It's not the $170 hand truck. It only works to give these boxes something to move around with. The other thing is, of course, these are pretty tough. So I've had these in a stack and used them as a workbench on the job site. Now, for security purposes, each one of the Ridgid bottom base boxes is going to come with this metal bar, and what it will do is it can slide down all these slots, and in theory you could take a little padlock and stick it on there. The thing is, these things, just like on their handles, are made to use a slightly undersized padlock, and you'd be buying like a pack of 10 that are key to make everything work. And you get away from the convenience issue on that, because I mean, a gorilla is still going to, a guy with a big-ass pry bar is still going to get into these. But if you wanted to do like a little bit of airport security style locking or something, you could do that. On a Dewalt, you can put a big ass padlock on here, and you can put cable locks through the handles. The drawers won't even lock. So when you get these little dividers in here, you know, you got to realize that drawer doesn't even lock. You just basically, you know, it's all plastic here on this. I press a button that unlatches the drawer, and that's kind of nice. It's convenient, so you get a little bit of an obverse relationship or inverse relationship between convenience and security. The other thing I'd notice on a drawer unit, it's not quite, because of its design. The material is the same material as the rest of them, but the design on it makes it where it's not going to take the weight. I mean, you don't want to stand on that drawer unit. You could stand on a solid boxes because of the way the lid goes all the way around and is supported by the edges of the box, but in a drawer unit you don't want to do that. So one of the temptations to avoid, let's say, if this is set up separately, would you want to sit on either one? Sure, you could, but if you could stand on this, no problem at all. I mean, you could have two big guys stand on that, but if you move over to this one and stand on that, you're going to have a problem. Now, as far as convenience for getting into the boxes, okay, accessing the top one's always easy, accessing the bottom one's a little tricky. That's where the Dewalt with the little hand truck cart kind of comes in pretty good, because there's a way of detaching the lower box without detaching everything else from the hand truck and getting at the lower box. So in my example, I keep some carpentry tools in there that I don't use as often. This thing's probably going to be used as a stool more often than anything else, but I got to have those tools when I'm working, so they're not going to be left behind. On the Ridgid box, the way you have to get at the bottom box is you have to detach everything and then open the two sides, and the lid will lift entirely off. So again, that's going to be for some of your volume stuff that you get out at the beginning of the workday and then put away at the end of the workday or at the end of the job. For a lot of quick access stuff, you're going to end up using the small boxes on top, which work about the same way, or with Dewalt, we're going to use the drawers. Now on Ridgid, here's where things can get kind of interesting. If I stack up the small boxes, and let's say I want to get into one but not the others, well, I got to have this collapse down, which can be a little tricky, but not majorly tricky. All of these are connected because I had those snapped into place. Now, I can remove one. This thing really can't be in there when I do this. But let's say I want to get into the middle box. Well, we can unlatch the middle box, lift this here, and I can get into the middle box. That's really not a problem. If I want to get into the lowest box, I want to make sure I didn't leave this unlatched, but then I could also just hold that with my fingers and I can get in that, and I'm still decently able to get at that. So that's just not really a problem. So you can grab that, kind of hold it with the thumb, hold it with the fingers. I can get into that lower box, and it's just not that big of a problem. So when I'm working with this stuff, it's you can get into these if you use the short boxes. With these, it kind of sort of works, but you can kind of do the same thing, but I just think it works a little better with the Ridgid ones because it's a stronger connection between the boxes when you latch them together. The other thing, of course, for security, most of these have pretty big substantial handles. If I run a cable block through these, I got to run it through the front handles. I can't run it through the side handles the way I could on a Dewalt. On a Dewalt, I can run a cable lock through all the side handles, lock it into the metal in my truck, and that's relatively secure. On the Ridgid one, if you want all these connected, you got to leave them connected, and your lock is going to have to go through those plastic handles, which, you know, isn't bad, but accessing this while it's in a truck, a little bit trickier than getting it to Dewalt. When you buy one of these things, you get you get some dividers, you get some of this stuff. There's no little lids on these, but you notice that there's kind of some dead space here. So this could be removed if you want to get more room in that box. But when it's in there, the lids for these is kind of like the indentations here. But if you just filled one of these up with this, well, then notice you don't have that in that center area. and that would allow these things to spill into each other. That's one of those things you kind of got to be aware of on these. There's also one I didn't buy that's part of the Ridgid system. It's kind of the medium-sized box. It's just about the size of two of the shorter boxes, and the price point on it is it's only $10 more, because you know the latches and the handles and the lid, all that's the same. It's just a little bit deeper box. I need to organize and separate the tools a little bit better, so I went with a larger number of small boxes, and that's all about the modular system on this. The reason I went over to this sort of a thing instead of a bag system is when somebody got into my truck and ripped me off, the convenience of the bag system, which I had these steel bars up here, and then the tool bags were hanging by carabiners, it was just a little bit too convenient for the thief. Now, I really like that system for convenience. It allows organization, and it allows me to keep the middle of the bed of the truck clear for cargo. But the other thing, of course, is if it started raining, like it's raining right now, well, then my tool bags get rained on. And that's where the box system just seems to, it's what I'm trying now, and I'll do some follow-ups. If anyone has any questions about this stuff, you can put it in the comment section below. I know it's kind of a long video, but hopefully we've been able to answer all or most of your questions in the course of the video. But if you have other questions or comments, just let me know.